I understand that even in the short time that you were part of our KW Ballantyne family, there's been a lot that's happened to you. Even in just this past year alone, a lot has happened. So if you could, take us back to last December. There was something kind of traumatic yet incredible that came out of that, that allowed you to experience the gift of KW Cares. Could you share your story with us?
Absolutely. So back December 9th, we went to lunch, actually for Jenna and Kelly's birthday. And I had been eating healthy. I was on a health journey toward the end of the year. We went to Outback and I did not eat up. So after that, I was starting to have some pains in my stomach. And just like, yeah, the blooming onion was a bad idea. And so I just kind of went with it. And the next day, it still hurted. And so I got Pepto and got all the medicine to try to help with whatever was going on. And I actually work a restaurant job part-time as well. And I went to work that night, made it through work, and I was in pain, but just didn't think anything of it. And when I made it home about 10:30, I collapsed walking into my house and couldn't get up and just was in so much pain and tears. My dog was going crazy, he just wanted to play and didn't understand what was going on. So the next day I was supposed to be flying in to see my dad and surprise him for his retirement party. He didn't know I was coming. I called my mom the next morning and said, "You're not taking me to the airport, you're taking me to the hospital." So I went to the hospital, I went to ER that morning.
Wow. So you went from thinking you were going to be traveling to Michigan, heading to the airport that morning, and then in a flash, you went to the hospital. I can't imagine how scary that was for you. But I know that when you were at the hospital, we're going to flash forward just a little bit, you actually are now being seen. You've been there several hours. You're getting every scan, every test that you know in the hospital. And you're still being optimistic. You're thinking this is going to be something simple, maybe kidney stones, something with a simple treatment plan. And then after 5 hours of being in the hospital, the surgeon walks in the room. And I know that shifted things. Tell me about that conversation with the surgeon.
Yeah, so once they finally got me into a room in the ER, the surgeon walked in and asked me, "Do you know what diverticulitis is?" And I said, "I've heard of it, I don't know." And he goes, "Well, you had it. Did you know you had it?" And I said, "No, this is the first time I've been in the hospital, I have no idea." And he's like, "Yeah, so he told me what it is, which is, if you don't know, it's polyps on your colon. And a lot of people have it and never know it. And you might go your whole life and never have an issue with it, but 2 of mine had gotten clogged and infected and actually burst. So my body was essentially filling up with infection and I had no idea. So when that happened, they immediately rushed me back to ICU, where I was not able to eat or drink or ice chips, no anything for what turned out to be the next 10 days, because they weren't sure if they were going to have to go in and operate, and so I had to be completely cleaned out. I couldn't have anything in me. So after a couple of days in there, they put me on antibiotics. And I was just in so much pain, it wasn't getting any better. And my stomach became so hard, it felt like I was pregnant. I mean, it was so hard. And after 3 days, they decided to run some new scans and found out I was filling up and I was all liquid and infection. So they actually put drains inside of me. We're able to drain a lot of that out. And it was immediate relief when they put those in. And just kind of where I went to from there was relief and a lot less pain.
And so I know that these drains, you actually had them for quite some time. This was not the end of the journey, though. There was plenty more left in this treatment plan for you. So tell us about what happened next in that process.
Yes, so I kept the drains in for 45 days, which even after I was out of the hospital, I got out of the hospital after 10 days. I was there from December 11th to December 21st. And they released me on conditions that I wasn't going to be alone. So my dad flew down from Michigan, and he had just retired. and his first vacation retired was to take care of his son. His couch, so,
Congrats to him.
yeah. So one good thing that came out of it was, this part of it. It was the first time I spent Christmas with my dad in 13 years. So, math, right? Yeah, so it was a long journey. He came down. I couldn't drive. I could barely walk, sit on the bathroom. I couldn't shower. I couldn't do anything a normal person takes for granted. So my dad came down and he would get me out walking. We'd go to Walmart and I'd have a cart and we'd just walk miles just to try to get better and strengthen us out because fortunately I didn't have to have emergency surgery then, but when I left the hospital I knew surgery was coming. There was no way to get around the severity of what I had. It had to happen. But the doctors explained if I could make it 6 to 8 weeks from my time that this happened, that it would be a much smoother surgery. Potentially wouldn't have to have an ostomy bag or something that a lot of people do have in this moment. So that was the goal, is to get these antibiotics to work over the next 6 to 8 weeks, which I was on antibiotics for 31 days. And just really heal my body. So obviously I was out of work for this whole time. That's kind of where I was at.
Yeah, and I mean, being out of work is tough enough. Add that to the medical bills at this point that you're incurring regularly. You've got your hospital stay, you've now got 6 to 8 weeks that you're on medications. You know that surgery is on the horizon. And so you're gearing up and getting ready for that surgery. I believe you had that in February. And so tell me about, now that you obviously, I think that's very scary in general. I think we can all relate to that. And correct me if I'm wrong, you were uninsured during this process as well. So that's a massive amount of stress that you're carrying on your shoulders. There's so much weight behind what you're doing when you're just trying to prioritize your health so that you can get better. Tell me a little bit about once you've returned in February, you get this surgery and...
So, like she said, I did come out I didn't have insurance when I went in the hospital in the summer. It was one of those things, obviously as a real estate agent, it's a cost that I just getting started my business and couldn't really afford at the time, or didn't think I could. And so I was able to get insurance in January, but I came out of the hospital with $130,000 on my bills from the first part. That's no surgery, that is a 10-day stay in the hospital and a couple drains put in to get some medication. So I knew I had to do something before I had surgery. And so I was able to get insurance and went in February. I had gotten far enough away from the date that they felt comfortable to operate. So when I went in February and did the operation, they removed 10 inches of my sigmoid colon. Luckily, all of my diverticuli were in one area, so by taking that 10 inches out, it removed all of it. So it can come back. I mean, it is something that can develop, but it is, for right now, I don't have it. When I went in, had the surgery, surgeon came and met with me a couple hours later, and he told me that I was days away from having another one had gotten infected. And I was going to have another episode, which then it would have been emergency surgery, had to have it done anyway. So he said, we're lucky we got in there when we did. And they were able to have a very successful surgery. I spent another 6 days in the hospital getting pain meds, right? They put me on an epidural with fentanyl. And literally, I couldn't walk for a few days because of how many pain meds I was on. But I was in there for 6 days. So when I was released, my dad actually came down again. And spent the next week with me, just helping me get back on my feet. And yeah, that was, the surgery part was the easy part. And I'm so glad I had it done.
We're glad too. So, we're glad, obviously, again, the surgery was successful. That at this point, you were out, obviously, for a few more weeks as a result of the surgery, not able to work. But as that time went on, you are recovering, you're starting to feel well enough that you're able to finally get back to those everyday activities. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like for you coming back into the Market Center for the first time with your KW Ballantyne family, and getting to experience that after all the support that you received?
Yes, so it was amazing. I've come back for here and there in between the surgery and the initial episode I had, but it was like I would come in for an hour or two and go home. I was just in too much pain. So after I had surgery, about 3 weeks later, I was cleared to drive, and that's when I could actually come back to the office, because as a real estate agent, it's hard to do a job without driving. So once I could drive, I was cleared to come back, and the support of the office was amazing. Not only my team, PJ and Cecilia both visited me in the hospital, and it was just amazing support the whole time. But when I came back in, and everybody knew what had happened, or a lot of the leadership knew what had happened, but they also understood the issues I was having financially. I hadn't worked in 3 months. And my dad paid my mortgage for 2 months. And there was just a lot that had happened there. And Darren and Lynn, everybody pulled me into the office. And Darren had KW Cares take care of his dad in the past. PJ has used KW Cares. So I had a lot of support and people that knew what to do. Jenna had done a lot of this. So they were like, let's get this done. It's this easy. We're just going to, that's what it's here for. Because in my head, I was just like, I just got to get back to working with money. I got to try to figure this out. But KW Cares stepped in. I called them on a Monday, got them all my paperwork, everything on a Monday. On Wednesday, I got a call. On Friday, I got a check. So, without KW Cares, I don't know what I would have done. Financially, between mortgage and car and insurance, and now I have health insurance. And, I mean, it's just, and then not including $159,000 in medical bills I have. It was just, it was overwhelming. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But having the leadership team in the office, leadership team on our team, everybody in the office that was support, the pets reached out to me, and there's a lot of people in this room that really showed true care, and that was a huge part. And with KW Cares in this office, it makes me so proud to work here with these people and new people and this leadership team that truly cares about their associates, we're not just another number. I mean, I got a personalized card from Brenda. I got cards from the office. I got just true thoughts. PJ was calling me every day. Hey, this person's asking about you. And I mean, it's just people. I've only been in the office a year. I'm not one of the people that was here for 21 years and knows everybody and has done all these great things. I'm a brand new agent. And you would have never known the difference. So it was really, really incredible.
Thank you.
Peter practice, and this is the first time he's really going to get you cry, actually. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing your story, Zach. And if I may, just say thank you to everyone here in the room who is part of this KW Ballantyne family and those who supported KW Cares, because at our core, it reminds us who we are as a company, how we care and support for one another, and we could not have done everything, and Zach would not be here, I think, without the support of a lot of you. So thank you for everything that you guys do. Please continue to give and think of people just like Zach who get to receive that right within your own family, because the impact is very real, and we appreciate everything you guys have done. Thank you.
Well, most of you have been along this journey with me for a while, and I too am a recipient of Keller Williams Ballantyne cares. I would be amiss not to say thank you at this time. Thank you, Zach, for sharing. Thank you, each one, for your love and your concern for one another, and for how you have supported me through the years. I won't go into detail, a lot of you know, but I just wanted to say thank you. There's a phrase that's been going over in my mind, and it says, against all odds, you matter. Against all odds, you matter. You make the difference. I want you to think about that today. I want you to know how important you are. To dream the impossible dream, to find the unbeatable hope, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the rightful wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to search for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for that heavenly cause. I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strong with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to search for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for that heavenly cause. I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that someone scorned and covered with scars, still strong, this last ounce of courage, to reach the unreachable star.
I am so excited to introduce to you today our friend here in Ballantyne named Kristen. and she has come to share her story with you. And I believe that it's really going to inspire your heart. So tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I grew up here in Charlotte, and I, went away to college and then away to grad school, but I always came back here. I just think it's a special place. My family's here. And, I got married, started having a kid or two, we got to 5 really fast. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, would you like us to tell you?
Oh, did I turn it off?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
There you go.
So 5 children.
5 children. And so at one point, it was November of 2012, I think, and I started to feel sick. Little kids, they come in, they bring in eggs, germ in the world. And I think we had 95% of them that week in our home. But I could have seen that I was probably going to get sick, could have seen that coming. But
So what did you have?
Sure. So I ended up with the flu and strep throat at the same time. And very quickly, within about, 15 hours of starting to at least admit that I felt sick, I was in a coma. And I asked my husband to take the kids to church. And when they came home, my 10-year-old and my 7-year-old found me on the floor, unconscious, unresponsive.
So you go to the hospital, and what did those awful strep bacteria do?
Infection. Gosh, it did a lot. I got to the hospital, but I ended up spending 107 days in the hospital, and I was in 6 different hospitals. I think I visited everyone in Charlotte.
And so they had entered
Yes,
your
they-
bloodstream.
Yes, the strep bacteria, and so it got into my bloodstream, and that's sepsis.
When it
have
hits the bloodstream, it's called sepsis,
sepsis, yes.
and that's one of the worst.
Yes, if you get sepsis, your prognosis is not great. And so what happens is then the infection travels throughout your body and attacks your organs. And so that is what it did to me. And it took a very long time for me to get better. There were lots of different reality show moments.
It affected what?
Well, actually, the infection just took out my organs. And one of the medications that they gave me in order to save my life is known for taking the blood and oxygen nutrients from your limbs to save, your organs in the middle of your body. So when I woke up, I guess I went unconscious like November 13th, I guess. And by Christmas, I had woken up just that morning. Talk about a Christmas miracle, right? But when I woke up, my hands and my feet were black and gangrene and necrotic, painful, just out of like a horror movie. And so it was understood, I think, that I would need to get amputations. And so a few weeks after that, we had one big quadruple amputations and one surgery. It took all day. They had a foot surgeon that was the best. They had a hand surgeon that was the best, and they did it in tandem, kind of like a mani pedi. Except
I'm not going to your mani-pedi. No,
Anyway, so people ask what it was like, and I think it was just as horrible as you would imagine. But it was very painful. It was a lot to come back from. You know, when I came home from the hospital, I was like 80 pounds. I was still sick. It took me a long time to like build my strength back. But then I got these amazing prosthetics, and I can open and close my hands. People say, "Is that magic?" I say, "Yes." And then they say, "Well, do you do that with your brain?" Well, yes, sort of. So there are some electrodes inside the arms, and what I do is I move the muscles in my forearm that is still there, and I move one muscle to open the hand, and then the other muscle to close, and then muscle down here to close the hand. So essentially, I had to just retrain my brain for how to open and close my hands. I got, prosthetic leg, and on the right side, I have most of my leg and most of my foot. It just doesn't have toes, and it doesn't have much of a heel on it. But you know what? Like today, I drove here, and I walked in the door. God is good, and people are good. There's so many people surrounded me. And I think I told the story of how this happened in a condensed way, but that's not the story. The story is how I came back from it.
Yes. Well, I tell you, 5 kids, you lived through the surgery, and tell us, how is it different now than it was prior to your magic hands, your marvelous, is that me?
You're good. That's back.
Your marvelous leg, and all this stuff you have.
Hold on a second, you need some water, Jer.
Yes. Thank you.
Just gonna hold that.
Turn it back on. It sounds like.
Am I making that noise?
No, I think it's.
It could have been me, I never know. I do beat from time to time.
It was idle, so if it does it again, just press a button. Somebody.
Okay.
Somebody.
Thank you, Ralph. You'll have and you can use this chair.
Thank you.
All right, you're good. Yeah, I can. If it does it again, I'll come back.
Thank you.
So, how is it different now than before, especially with these 5 kids?
Yes, well, luckily, they have grown. And
All right.
It's okay, dear. It's okay.
It's not you. It's not you. It's not you. It's not you. I swear.
That's very sweet of you to say.
It's not. It's not.
Okay. So, so one of the things that is so different is that I have help. Before all this happened, I thought I was every woman, and I don't need help. I've got these 5 kids. When you're sick, I'm going to show up at your door with a casserole. I don't need a casserole, And for whatever reason, in our society, people think that asking for help is weak. And I thought that too. And so when I came back from this, I found that my real strength comes from those around me. My husband has been amazing. My kids are great, and believe it or not, they help me. My girls are all teenagers now. God help me. That's the real miracle, though. But they can do my hair sometimes, and they tell me when my outfit isn't trendy and all the reasons that I embarrass them. But what's great is we have a pretty normal life. And I would say my kids are much more independent than most kids these days. They were doing laundry by second, third grade, they cook, everybody takes a night of what they want to have for dinner. But instead of just saying, hey mom, I want this, they come to the grocery store with me. They pick out what the ingredients are. They cook the dinner. Of course, don't be too impressed because my son, like, he'll get a bag of Totino's pizza rolls. Hand them out like chicken feed. I had one rule: you have to have a vegetable. So he got a bag of baby carrots and passed it out. So there are ways around it, but my kids, can all do that, and my hope is that that will serve them well in life. And my husband does so much more. The first, month or so that I was home, he kept looking at me and just apologizing. And I'm like, what? He said, I had no idea all the things that you did. And, being a mom and all the things that go with it was one of the things that I missed the most, what I really wanted back. But my husband said, you know what, Kristen, you got the first 10 years, I'll get the next. Oh. He's pretty great. The problem is 10 years is up. And the girls were all teenagers.
Well, being the leader of a home with 5 children requires tremendous skill. So what would you say are the 2 or 3 things about how your leadership style has changed since you got all your hardware?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I mentioned beforehand, I did everything in the house.
So you asked for help.
I asked for help, and that's the biggest thing that has changed. I realized that in asking for help, that is how you get strong. And when you're vulnerable and ask your friends and coworkers and families for help, that increases your friendship, your relationship, and that is where the strength is. You guys showed that with your story this morning, and you guys do that, and that is amazing. And most companies don't do it. But back to the leadership. Sorry, I sometimes digress. Back to the leadership. So instead of just being a one-man show, I delegate. And I have to trust people that they'll do it, because otherwise stuff's not getting done. But so asking for help has just really gotten to me. And even my kids help. Each of them have their role. It's almost like a board of directors. You're in charge of making sure that my outfit matches. You're in charge of, making dinner tonight. You're in charge of the dishes. And it all kind of works like clockwork, such that I can be gone and I can sneak out, right? But so the household, I think, sort of runs itself. And I think that's the hope with any business, that everybody cares about it, everybody cares about you, and everybody helps you.
So she now understands, what's the word? Leverage. By asking, she enhances her ability to get things done. That's what you realtors get to do. You not only manage your own household, but with more efficiency now, but you have a business. So tell us about your business.
Yes, I am so proud of my business. So when I went to graduate school early on in my life and became a mental health counselor. And, once the kids outnumbered me, I stayed home because I just had to, daycare would have been ridiculous. But also I wanted to. But so after this happened to me, you mentioned medical bills and 5 kids have to eat. People absolutely gave us money. The community was amazing. But I needed to work. And so our plan had always been for me to go back to work when the kids, got older. And then I just kept having kids. That was a good trick, right? But I thought that I would, be sad about going to work, that, leaving the kids. Going back to work and having my own business has been the most exhilarating, the most wonderful thing. It showed,
So what do you do?
yes, sorry. I'm a mental health counselor, right? And so I have my own private practice. A few years back, I was trying to become a motivational speaker, and I've done some of it, and it was going well, and then COVID hit. And so this is when you pivot, right? So speaking was no longer, but my counseling business took off. And what is, I think, really impactful for my clients is that I do struggle. I struggle every day, and you can see me struggle. But everybody struggles, and no one struggle is bigger or smaller. I think that people can look at me and say, well, you know what, if she's doing this, I think I can too. And so I hope that that is motivating. I think that it is. I think I bring myself into my counseling as well. I do marriage counseling, and I'm so much better at that because my marriage has stood tests, 5 of them. And truly, I don't usually joke like that, but I get laughs and then I say it again. But yeah, I have a dark sense of humor. My husband says I've gotten a lot funnier because I've got a lot more material. Like if you say, hey, can I give you a hand? I'm likely to say, actually, I need 2. You have me laying around. And people are very taken aback by that.
Oh, you're funny.
Yes. But what I really do love is being back to work. And I started out slow. Only I knew what I could and couldn't do. So I started out slowly. And it built, and it built, and it grew. And I think that's what all of you guys are doing, is building your own business.
So,
But you don't have to do it alone. Ask for help.
so in our final thoughts this morning, what do you want these professional realtors to take away? What do you want them to take to their personal lives? And what do you want them to take to their professional?
Sure. Well, I think that you can show up and be that same person professionally and personally. I think that showing your humanity to your clients is going to do more harm than good. And I think that asking for help of those around you is really, really important. When I was in the hospital, people that were amputees would come and visit me to kind of show me that life was possible with prosthetics. And I was floored. And I thought to myself, well, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. And these people came to visit me and they mentored me. They told me kind of all the tricks that you need as an amputee. And I always said, if I get to be any type of function, I'm going to do this too. And so now I'm part of that mentoring circle, and I go visit people in hospitals. And the mentoring thing is so amazing because first I was mentored, and now I mentor. And I think that if you are young in your career, ask somebody to be your mentor. And they're gonna say yes, everybody wants to help. And what is great is when I visit people, it not only helps them, it helps me. Helping others makes us all feel good. It also reminds me of how far I've come. So that circle of mentoring, I would say you can take that with you at home and to work.
You have been wonderful this morning. You've made us laugh, and you've made us think. If she can do it, we can do it. So let's show Kristen how much we appreciate it.
So, I didn't tell Mo I was gonna do this, and I'm gonna, hold on, I gotta hoist it up here too. Alright, let me get situated. Alright. I have a really cool story. I have lots of cool stories about this lady. I was with Cole Baker in Oklahoma City. Actually, I was with Merrill Pryor Realtors, who was the #1 independent real estate company in Oklahoma City, who then became Cole Baker. And I was in the office one day, and we called them managers and brokers because that's kind of what they were. Came up to me and said, "Hey, there's going to be this meeting tonight over at a friend of mine's house, and there's this new company that's coming to town, and I think it would be like a perfect fit for you. And I'm going, so it's just, I'm going, and I'd love for you to go. There's only going to be maybe 10 of us there. And this lady named Mo Anderson is going to come speak to us." Okay, if you think I should be there, then guess what? I'm going to go be there. So we go, and it was a little small living room, and the lady's house, her name was Jean Lowell, who Mo had actually contacted and was going to be the team leader. And so I was sitting on the floor, and Mo got up and started telling us about this new company that was going to come to town named Keller Williams. And she was going to launch the state of Oklahoma, so the Oklahoma region, as well as the initial office, market center in Oklahoma City. And we were looking for members, people that would be interested. And when she finished, I stood up and I said, "I'm in." Literally on the spot. I always say it's the first one. Jeannie Benson says she tried to tell you that she said, "I'm in" first, but I really think I was, right? And I'll be really honest with you, what really intrigued me, I didn't know Mo at all, but what really intrigued me about this company was the profit share model. Because I was already at one of the top offices in Oklahoma City. I've been really blessed as I had kind of launched my career, done pretty well. And I had the same split, just all that kind of stuff. I was like, so why would I do this? Well, first of all, I knew I would do it because Mark, my broker, called Baker, I really trusted and believed in her and listened to what she had to say about it. But that little profit share thing kind of really intrigued me. And as they say, kind of the rest is history. I was on the very first ALC that ever launched in the state of Oklahoma, and was so fortunate. About 3 months later, Mo had a Christmas party at her house, the old house in Edmond, and we were gathered around, and I was on the floor again. I guess what? I can still sit on the floor, just so you know, and get up on my own. But I was very comfortable, and the floor was always crowded, so I sat on the floor, and a little bit later, this little tap, tap, tap. It was Mo. She goes, "Can I see you for a minute? Can I speak to you?" Yeah. So we went in, and I sat on her piano bench, and she pulled up a chair, and she said, "I didn't really think I was going to do it this quick, but I'm getting ready to launch another office, market center, right here in Edmond, and I'd love for you to be a candidate to be my team leader. So the second little takeoff, I guess you would, with Keller Williams, and as they say, the rest is history. I have to share that with you because when you begin to hear her story, you're going to see that what she did for me, she's done all her life. And this lady, through her mentorship and what she gave me an opportunity to do, changed my life forever. And this company has changed my life forever. And she taught me so many things about servant leadership, about money being good for the good that money can do, how to love on people, how to create standards and boundaries. We could go on and on. But that's the Mo that you're about to hear from. And I'm just one of many, many people that she's impacted. And I want you to know that part of my story because I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't had that opportunity in Oklahoma years ago. And so I want you to listen as Mo begins to tell us about her story. And it starts being a tenant farmer's daughter, right? Tell us about that.
I was born in 1937, and to save you from doing the math, I'll be 89 years old your next Red Day. I just can't wait to get to 90 because my 70s happened to be the best decade of my life, and the 80s have come in really, really strong. And I have a feeling the 90s will be the best of all. So when you're a tenant farmer's daughter in Oklahoma, you go to school with holes in your shoes, and you wear feed sack dresses. The thing that I learned growing up on that several tenant farms is the work ethic. And let me tell you, it has paid off for me in Keller Williams. The first 4 years that I lived in Austin and ran the company, I want you to know I was at the office at 6 o'clock in the morning. I stayed till 2 the next morning because Gary only had 7 employees when I got there, and I dehired 4 of them. And after I dehired the people he hired, he said we couldn't afford to hire their replacements, that we had to make some money first. So I kind of was the jack of all trades in the early days. Growing up and learning that work ethic, I see such a difference in the world today than I did then. Now, if you live in the city, it's much more difficult to help a child build a work ethic because there's not as much work as there is on a farm, and on a farm the work never ends. What did I learn in my grade school and junior high and high school? I learned that you did not have to be judged on how much money your father had. It was embarrassing for me to have little grade school girlfriends stay all night with me because we did not have an indoor bathroom. We had an outhouse, a 2-holer. And it is not fun having an outhouse in the winter when it's very, very cold or there's a lot of snow on the ground. So that gives you a bit of an idea of how I grew up. My parents came out of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, and as a child, I very well remember many of the Dust Bowl days that came across the Oklahoma prairie.
So Mo, I know you had a great appreciation for Sabra this morning because you were a music teacher, right?
Oh, yes.
For a while, and Lloyd Slade can play the piano. It's so cool to sit and listen to her play that piano. And but after those days, you got into real estate. Tell us, you have the most interesting journey in real estate sales. So tell us a little bit about that.
Do you want me to tell the Richard part or the Lily Mae?
Oh, you got to tell the Richard part.
Okay. Richard watched me as the husband.
That's right.
Yeah, by the way, we've been married 68 years. Half the time I wanted to kill him.
And the other half, she was on the road, so that's why.
He's a really sweet person. He really is. He came home one night and he said, we were living in Ponca and he was employed at Conoco Oil Company in the computer department. That was when computers were brand new. He came home and he said, honey, I've enrolled you in a class. And I said, what? I've enrolled you in a class. And I said, what class? He said, a real estate class. And I said, a real estate class? Why in the world would you enroll me in a real estate class? And he lied through his teeth and he said, just because I want you in the class with me. That didn't faze me. I said, you need to ask me if I want to go to a class. And he said, well, we haven't purchased our first home yet, so this class will be good for us to take. Now, I said, okay. And so I reluctantly went to the class because I loved being a music teacher. My choir was the best between the Mississippi River and the California coast. And all my kids could sing on tune because I knew how to help them find their singing voice. It was wonderful what was accomplished with those youngsters. We got to fly in an airplane for the first time to Chicago to sing at a music teachers convention. We performed in Oklahoma at the music teachers convention. It was so glorious. So I went through the class thinking I just needed to learn the stuff that pertained to buying a home. Well, not very much of it applied to buying a home. So we drive to Oklahoma City to the Skirvin Hotel in the great big, huge, beautiful ballroom to take the test back then. So I worked hard all morning long on the first half of the test. We broke for lunch, and I told Richard, I said, I don't know the answers to these questions. He said, you'll do a lot better this afternoon. So we go back in, and I read the questions. I don't know any of them. So I thought, I'm getting out of here. I didn't want to come in the first place. So I just put a little check. I didn't even reread the question. It was multiple choice. And down I go and I do these little checks. And in 15 minutes after I got there, I left. And Richard looked up, and here I am walking out of the room, and he didn't know what in the world was going on. He stayed another 2 hours to read the questions carefully and check the right answer. So when he came out, he said, "Why did you leave in 15 minutes?" And I said, "I flunked that test and I'm really embarrassed. I have a degree from the University of Oklahoma and I flunked the stupid real estate test." But it doesn't matter because I didn't want to get in the business anyway. I wanted to be a music teacher. So 2 weeks later, we get letters from the real estate commission. We opened his first.
They were good letters, Sabra. They were good. So everybody knows. All right, keep going.
It was the result of our test. He made a 97 on the test. I made a 70. And the letter said I made the lowest score you could make and still pass. Now, I'm telling you that somebody messed up in that office. There is no way I could have passed that test. But they said I barely passed it, so I got my real estate license. Now here's the real deal. Richard saw how hard I worked as a music teacher. He saw my passion. He saw my love for the kids. And he thought to himself, if I could just get her in real estate, she'd make a lot of money. Now, when I was 8 years old, I started praying and asking the Lord, when I grow up and I work, will you please let me make more money than I need? And the reason I did that is because I never got to buy a birthday present for anybody. We didn't have many parties back then, but the few we had, I didn't even go to because I was embarrassed that I couldn't buy a present. And I never, ever had the opportunity growing up to buy my parents a store-bought gift. If I gave them something at Christmas, it had to be something I made with whatever we had. And so I prayed and prayed that he would bless me and let me make more money than I needed. Well, I have to tell you, in the teaching profession, you don't make more money than you need. And that's the reason I finally agreed that I would hang my license and maybe someday get into the real estate business. So that's how it happened. By the way, when I took the broker's license, I made a 95.
All right, I really want to jump to the KW, but before we do that, just give us a little summary, kind of the C21 Merrill Lynch. So you got your license. You weren't a great sales agent, right? And
No, I seem to not be able to get that going. It would have helped had I had training. But it was, here's the desk, here's the phone, and now you're on your own. You have no idea how blessed you are because you have access to the greatest training in the world.
So you started some things there with owning some companies. So tell us a little bit about that, and then we're going to jump to KW because I'll never forget the day Gary Keller called me to get a reference on you. That's a really cute little story. I'll throw in a couple little pieces on that. But tell us about that because I really believe, Mo, that the culture of what you built in those non-KW offices really penetrated our company and really formed who we were when you went to KW.
Well, that's where I learned how important culture is in a business. And it's where I learned that, yes, you'll have culture, whether you try to have culture or not. What kind of culture do you want? because you will either have a values-based culture or some other kind of culture, or you'll end up with a toxic culture. And when you don't deal with conflict immediately, then of course the atmosphere begins to be toxic. So I was an agent in the Bob Turner Realtors, and he yelled at everybody during the team meeting and de-inspired them. Did you get that? And I thought, this is horrible. I loved him as a person, but he was one of the worst leaders ever because he never inspired anyone, never encouraged anyone, and just yelled at them. And so we decided to start our own company, and I didn't at that time have a broker's license. So I got two gals to come with me, precious women. They're both deceased now, but oh, you knew them. They were Jerry Brown and
Jerry Brown.
Ruth Honeycutt. And one of them had their broker's license, and the other one was the top salesperson in Edmond. So no one thought these three women would ever be successful. After about a year, we bought a Century 21 franchise. And a few years later, we were the number 3 office out of 7,500 Century 21 offices in the United States and Canada. We stayed in that position for 5 years. We tried hard to get to 2. But Edmond only had a population at that time of about 40,000. Now it has over 100,000. And we just hadn't penetrated the Oklahoma City market as much as we needed to move to number 2 nationally. And I learned a lot from Century 21 because they had a little bit of training. And I really appreciated that training. And one day we get a call from Merrill Lynch. They tell us they are developing a reload department and a real estate division, and they're buying companies all over the U.S. They saw that we had 55% market share in our town. And they began to talk to us about the possibility of buying us. Well, we weren't for sale, but we had done an evaluation on our company. And we were surprised at what the evaluation was. It was really good. More money than this tenant farmer's daughter had ever seen. Excuse me. And so they just popped an offer to us. It would be dependent on due diligence, and it would be dependent on a lot of things. But it was over $200,000 more than our evaluation. And so we began to think, maybe we ought to look at it. So I want you to know, I told the agents what had happened. And I said, you know, as we walk down this path, I'm going to tell you everything that happens. And then when you run into realtors in town and you hear the rumors, you will know the truth. I told them everything. And then at our team meetings, we had rumor mill moments where we would hear what they were told, and we would laugh at the rumors, it was just ridiculous. But they knew exactly where we were in the negotiation. And we decided to sell to them because it was just a great opportunity. And Jerry and Ruth were kind of wanting to slow down. And I didn't want to slow down. So this could be interesting. Maybe I'll learn more from Merrill Lynch. So I ran the Merrill Lynch operation in the city. I did a turnaround on the Northwest Highway. They already had an office there, and it was not doing well, and we turned it around. They bought our office. I did an acquisition for them. I opened a new office in Nichols Hills. It did really well. So we were rolling and going.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so kind of you. That's an example of servant leadership. Giving a hand.
You were rolling and going. And later on.
And then I was finished with my non-compete. 2 years later, I get a call from somebody by the name of Gary Keller. Do you realize I wouldn't have even answered the phone if we'd had caller ID back then? I just shudder when I think about that. So God is so good because he made Gary call me while we still didn't have caller ID. God is so good.
I love all that. I said a while ago that I'll never forget when Gary called me as he was taking her through this career visioning process, and he said, well, what's one thing you can tell me about her? I go, she's tough as Dickens. And he goes, oh, that's bad? And I go, actually, no, it's really good because she has standards, expectations, and accountability around that. So that was a little bit of my interaction and when she actually moved to Keller Williams International. So I want to go to that place. I want to jump to that, Mo, because I want you guys to understand that when Mo went to KWRI, we laughed and we teased about it, and Gary knew it, but it was a mess, right? Related to where the company was at that point. And the number one thing that I felt, and many people felt about KW from Mo, was this cultural piece and what culture meant to her. And it's not just Red Day. Red Day is a result of our culture, right? So Mo, can you talk about how when you went to KWRI, how you instilled this cultural concept of the white expertise and how we treat each other and the cultural pieces that have come out of that with our 501c and all of those things. And I think there's not a better way to wrap up today than to talk about the culture in our company and how it was initiated really when this lady went to Austin and how all of our worlds were turned around. Share that with us.
Well, I've learned in doing Century 21 and Merrill Lynch, I'd learned how important culture was. And I also learned that it's absolutely the cement between the bricks that holds everything together. And when it becomes toxic, then the cement cracks, and then what happens to the bricks? They fall out, and then there's a mess of bricks down there and a hole in the wall. So when I went to Austin, but first of all, you need to know that Oklahoma region was the first region that was developed. And I did really, 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 really good with the blessing of the Lord. And Gary thought I did good because of his little dinky manuals. He thought he was the greatest person in the whole world because I did good. have laughed about that for years. But we really did good, didn't we, Brenda? We did great. And Gary was really proud. So we all just chuckled at him when he came, but we loved him and respected him, and we were so grateful for his system and models. Now, when I moved to Austin, when I finally agreed to be his first CEO, I want you to know there were 1,800 agents in the entire company. By then, he had 45 offices. So I studied everybody and realized that I needed to close 15 of the 45 offices. So I met with everybody eyeball to eyeball and said, I care about your money more than you do. Because you're spending money like crazy. You're not recruiting, you're not making money. And my conscience will not allow me to let you do it anymore. Because some of them were breaking into their retirement funds. And I said, I'm going to give you 30 days to get this office turned around. Well, they're not going to get it turned around in 30 days if they haven't in 2 years or 5 years for some of them. Or, no, it wouldn't have been that long. Yeah, it would have. It could have. So, out of the 45 offices, I closed 15 of them. Stayed in touch with them after I booted them out, loved on them as they left, and we're still friends with many of them today. And then I looked at the regions, and they weren't performing, and so I can't remember how many regions he had by the time I moved there. But I know 2 or 3 of them had come to our region to see how we were doing it. And that was Colorado, Arizona, and somebody else. I can't remember. And out of the regions, I foreclosed on 5 of them. And then tried to replace them with someone who was more of a match. But you can only take what the market will give you. And back then it was Keller who, some white papers had been written by universities telling about the new business model Gary Keller had created and how stupid it was and how it would never work. I would go to some of the big NAR stuff. I remember going to the Great Ideas group, and when they would see that my name badge had Keller Williams on it, they would just literally turn on their heel and walk away from me. It was like I had lice. Some horrible disease. And then it was so funny because years later, I would go to those meetings, and it was really about the time we were #1 in the world. And they flocked to me like flies. Thought, you little hypocrite, you. You wouldn't speak to me and you thought we wouldn't make it. But I knew we would make it. And let me tell you why. Because in the company I owned that was #3 in Century 21, guess what? We profit shared on 2 levels. I did profit sharing on 2 levels. I didn't quite know how to take it to 3 or 4 or 5. And
Or 6 or 7.
Or 6 or 7. And we also had an ALC. I called it an advisory board, but it functioned almost identically to his ALC. I saw immediately when I studied his economic model that it probably was almost recession-proof, because I determined that top agents and really good cappers would never leave. New people would in a recession, but those who are solid cappers and the top agents wouldn't leave. So it was really almost a recession-proof model. I got so excited. And so deep inside, I knew it would work if I just had the tenacity to be treated like dirt for a few years, and I could get it to grow enough that people would begin to pay attention to it. Well, that happened. And look where we landed.
I think one of the things that this piece of culture that you brought, to Keller Williams across the country, it's always been a part of who you were. Your stories as a little girl, your stories as a music teacher, your stories as a business owner, and the way that you touch people, care about people. And when I think about that, Mo, I think about that a lot of your desire and your kindness came out of so much of what you didn't have and what you wanted to share when you did have it. And when you couldn't initially, and then when you did have it.
Well, see, Gary had the Y4C2Ts when he came to Oklahoma City to meet me. He had heard about me, and he flew in to meet me. And he designed that with his remaining agents after RE/MAX raided his office in the late 80s. And that's when they came up with the words, win-win, integrity, customers come first, et cetera, et cetera. So he already had that. And it was the first time I had ever seen a real estate company put their beliefs or their values down on a piece of paper. And I was so impressed. And then this kid, he was 34 when I met him. Yeah, because yes. He was a year older than my son. He was just a little whippersnapper. And he was so smart. And I thought, man, I want to plug into his brain. And then when he showed me his 7 levels, see, I already knew how the profit share created such great synergy among the agents and between the agents and the owner. Of course you want Ballantyne to become more profitable, because when you do want that, the pool gets bigger, duh. And your check is larger, yay! So I knew it would work. And a lot of people doubted it. Monica Reynolds, for example, I tried to get her, I've known her for 100 years. And I tried to get her to take part of California, and she thought I was crazy for going with Gary, and she didn't think we'd make it. And years later, she came with us, but she lost her opportunity to have part of California. And she was to kick herself around the world now. So I knew it would work. And when all these people, I would fly to Chicago or wherever to have a meeting with a possible regional director, and they would stand me up in the early days. I just thought, okay, I'm going to go to number 2, and if I have to go to 150 before I find them, that's fine, because I knew the models would work. Now, here's what's happened to us. People aren't paying attention. Well, you are, but you're one of the few paying attention to the models anymore. And I'm hearing people say the models don't work. Well, I took an office in Oklahoma City that had absolutely crashed and burned. And I know the 10 steps of turning around an office that's not performing. And that office is so good now, I could just shout it to the world. The culture is so good. So what I was able to do with his wife were C2Ts, because I quickly saw nobody was living it. Did you hear what I said? Yeah. Living it. Because it's a worthless piece of paper if nobody lives the culture. Well, for them to live it, it first has to become head knowledge. And then it has to move to the heart before they'll ever live it. And so when I would go to his 7 offices early on and speak, I'd say to them, I wasn't even with the company at the time, I'd say, you got this wonderful little thing that you call the Y4C2Ts, as Gary says, that with that Texas accent. Y. Let me hear you, North Carolinians. Y4C2Ts. I say Y4C2Ts. In Oklahoma. Oh, I'm glad you're laughing. So I challenged them to first memorize it and then attempt to live it the very best they can. And Gary began noticing a little bit of a difference. See, he was fabulous at the intellectual part, but he didn't. See, there's some things I can do he can't do. But he didn't know how to make it come alive in the lives of the people. Well, that's what I'd learned in the real estate experience I had before I met him. And then we added 3 other pillars. The Y4C2Ts, of course, was the first pillar that was created, and Gary and his people created it. But I knew how to make it come alive, and I knew how to teach people what to do in the market center to help it come alive. And so when you came here, you left me, Brenda. She just left me. She fell in love with North Carolina. I want to move there. I cried when she left. But anyway, you knew the stuff frontwards and backwards, so you were a little mo and just made it happen here. And I appreciate it so much.
I hope what's resonating with you is what's resonating with me today. Stories of tenacity, resilience, heart, and action. What Mo created in that cultural piece for us, we've seen expressed in Red Day. We've seen it expressed in disaster relief. I'll never forget that we raised more money in Keller Williams for Katrina than NAR did, than NAR. Our company raised more money for Katrina relief than NAR. We have constantly.
We only had $200,000 in the bank when Katrina hit, and I knew we had 100 and some agents that lost everything. every single thing in their house that all washed away. So I figured we needed at least 5 million, and Gary said, when do you need it? And I said, tomorrow morning. He said, how are you gonna get it? And I said, I'm gonna have a phone call with the leadership. We have 50,000 agents. I'm gonna beg and plead and get down on my knees and beg and plead that every agent get the equivalent of $100. Here's your 5 million. And if they can't do it, maybe they could sell some books, mow some lawns, or do something. And we'll try to get our top agents to give more on behalf of those who were newer and their businesses hadn't incubated yet. So I want you to know we had 5.3 million by December 31 of that year.
Yeah.
Do you remember we had a leadership thing, and that's when the day Katrina hit, and we passed the hat, and we got $47,000 just from, 60 people or whatever.
Yeah, it was big. And I guess what I want you to take away from everything you've heard this morning is that one person can make a difference. One story, one opportunity to overcome, one vision, one moment, one you. Don't ever dilute or disregard what you can do in that moment. Because in that moment that Mo Anderson said yes to Gary Keller, she changed our world. And the story goes on and on and on and on. And you heard it this morning. 3 very different stories, but every one of them had a common thread. Culture and people rallying around people.
Can I say something else before we quit? You see, our culture is values-based. And what a values-based culture is, it's a culture that is based on eternal truths. Because win, win, or no deal will be true for 1,000 years from now. Integrity, do the right thing, it's going to be true forever. So your interest rates change, your ownership has changed lately. Everything in your whole real estate life changes all the time. But your culture will never change because it's based on truths. You know, agents will come to me and they'll say, oh, my truth is. And I say, darling, I really don't care about your truth. And let me tell you why. Because I'm 88 years old, going on 89, and I have learned that a whole lot of my truths weren't true. And so I have people all over the country calling me, saying to me, Mo, we're losing our culture, we're losing our culture, do something. I said, no, you do something. And so let me ask you a question real fast. Can you control the weather? No. Can you control what your grown kids do? And control my 3-year-old granddaughter. No, you can't. Now answer me when I ask you this. Can you control the market center 3 miles down the road? No. Can you control Ballantyne? Of course you can. Now let me hear you say yes.
Say yes. I was thinking about it in different ways.
You've got an ALC that establishes policy. You have a culture committee. You can have as rich a culture as you want in your market center.
True.
Forget about international. Forget about the market center down the road that you can't control. You can't do anything about it anyway, but let me tell you what, you can make the world shine because you can control the culture inside your market center. And if you don't have culture like you used to, it's because of you. Got it? Because our culture is a values-based culture. That means it's based on the truth.
And that is the inspiration that brought me to KW, that started this most incredible path. And part of the joy of my heart is that we do have that culture at KWB. And if it stumbles, we grab it by the neck and pull it up. And we address it. And we get going again.
That's why you're also number 3 in the nation in profitability. And you've been number 1 a whole bunch. Because when you're true to God's principles, like trust begins with honesty, customers always come first. That stuff is true. It is truth. It's not what we perceive to be true. It is the truth because it is based on biblical principles. And so that's why you're blessed. And they're blessed to have you. And you're blessed because we figured it out. We were the first region to figure it out because we were the first region on board outside of Gary's bunch. And they didn't quite get it as good as we got it.
I love
So
it.
you got to be the one rolling this.
We're going to close, and again, I want to thank you to all of you. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Zach, Mo, Jess. Do you have something?
I have a request before Mo sits down. If she can remind everyone about being enthusiastic. I would love that.
There's such truth in this. If you act enthusiastic, you will be enthusiastic. And I'm going to give you one quick story so that you'll understand that is a basic truth. Gary Keller, in the late 80s, we lost all of our money because the oil patch, we live in the oil patch, and the oil prices went down. And people would say to me, "Oh, Mo, I'm so sorry." And I would say, "Well, you know what? We'll build back again." And I didn't believe what I was saying, because you know when the circumstances around you look like you're never gonna hardly eat again, it's hard to believe that you'll build back again. But I said it over and over because I believe if you act enthusiastic, you will eventually actually become enthusiastic. I had experienced it in an incident in teaching school. That's where I learned it. And then I read Dale Carnegie and I learned it again. So I said it over and over. Every time all my friends and all the people I knew would feel sorry for me because we were poor again, I'd say, "Well, you know what? We're going to build back. We know how to work hard and we're going to build back." Still didn't believe it. It wasn't till I said it probably the 2000th time. And one morning I woke up and I said, Richard, I believe we're really going to build back. And he rolled his eyes. And 2 weeks after that morning is when I received the call from Gary Keller.
If you act enthusiastic, you will be enthusiastic.
Now, if you only want to act enthusiastic for 10 seconds, I'm telling you, for me it took 2,000 times. And for you it may take 1,000. For Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders, it took him 1,000 before anybody bought his chicken recipe. But he just went on to the next person. And what you have to learn to do is discipline yourself to have that positive affirmation one more time, until you feel in your soul, in your heart, you believe it. 2 weeks from that morning.
One more hand for Romeo.
There's the wonder of springtime and harvest, the sky, the stars, the sun, but the wonder of wonders that thrills my soul is the wonder that God loves me. Oh, the wonder of it all, the wonder of it all, just to think that God loves me. God gave his son, they called him Jesus. He came to love, heal and forgive. He bled and died to buy my pardon, and empty grave is there to prove my Savior lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. Oh, how he loves you and me. Oh, how he loves you and me. He gave his life, what more could he do? Oh, how he loves you. Oh, how he loves me. Oh, how he loves you and me.